Okay, we're rolling.
Everybody, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's the podcast where we get to have amazing people on the show as guest co-hosts. I work an overnight shift 5 nights a week, and there's one person who keeps me company and does it so well. Mary is on the show today, and when I listen to her show, A, I love the content. B, I love Mary because Mary is just like, she's like a lightning in a bottle. She just like so much energy and fun and exciting. I love how she has her podcast edited. It flows. It's got music. It's engaging. Just like all around, I'm a big fan. And now she's blushing for you listening. She's like putting her head down like, come on, Dave. Come on, Dave.
Dear.
But it's true. And I say it because it's true. This podcaster worked hard. She comes with a ton of experience. And I'm just super thrilled that I have a moment in her day today to introduce you to Mary. If you've never met her, you're going to fall in love with her in a heartbeat. Mary Chan, welcome to the How to Podcast series. So glad to have you with me today.
I don't know what to say to that. Thank you, I guess is what I say. Thank you.
It's all well-deserved. You show up so well. The Podcaster's Guide to a Visible Voice. I have the song in my head, Mary, as I said. Come on, let's go. Like, it's right there in my head. I want to go. The music is great. Everything's great.
Exactly.
It's so cool. Over 100 episodes, Mary. Like, come on. Wow.
I started it because I knew I wanted to help other podcasters. And just this idea of, okay, how do I do it as well? Like, I had another podcast, but just a podcast on podcasting is a totally different beast.
Yeah, it's fun. And early days of your podcast, because I've been going back and listening to every episode, by the way. That's the kind of listener I am. Once I find a show, I latch on. I'm like, you can't get me to stop listening. Talk a little bit about how those shows kind of progressed over 100 episodes. Any big changes for you as a podcaster?
The first year, my main goal was I want to podcast every single week, get an episode out there, and I wanted to make them all solos just because it would be easier for me from like a business perspective as well for people like you who are like, okay, hey, I found this person. I'm going to listen to their back catalog, and it's going to be my thoughts, my feelings, my experience that I've had working in radio for almost 20 years. I'm just lumping it all into the first series. And I did that because I wanted to also model what other people were doing and just sort of being in their shoes in my own way. So I had clients who were like, well, I do a weekly show and this and that. So I was like, okay, what would that feel like if I also did a weekly show? And then I knew that was not going to last. Like, my brain was not going to be able to sustain a weekly show on top of everything else in life and building a business and etc. So after that first year, I switched to the current way of doing things, which I still love. So I haven't changed it. Is every other week is a rotation between a solo or a guest. And then I also take little mini breaks in between for the summer and winter.
I miss you when you're on your breaks. But
Thank you.
I'm glad you do that, though, too. And I think that's interesting because people will reach out to me and they say, I want a podcast, but I don't know if I'm allowed to take breaks.
Yeah.
What would you say to them, Mary, about that?
Yeah, that's a huge thing because, we look up to the other people before us, right? That maybe like the celebrities, the bigger shows, and they're usually on a very tight schedule or like a weekly show or something like that. So I'm like, well, I can't, or the algorithm won't let me, right? If I stop, then the algorithm is going to penalize me or something like that. So we have it in our minds that we have to do a weekly show. But for me, if people don't take a natural break from any sort of creative endeavor, it's just going to be another to-do list, another task that you have to check off, and it's not going to be as fun. I love taking those times off to rejuvenate for energy-wise. Like, I have a family. My daughter's 10 now, so like we go out and do things in the summer and in the winter time. And so I need time and space for that, and also time and space for maybe coming up with the next phase of episodes. What is that theme going to be? What do I really want to hone in on? What am I passionate about within podcasting right now that I can talk about? So that's why the breaks are important. It will help you in the end if you take a break.
And don't feel like it's you need permission you don't have to go and ask somebody, hey, I'd like to take a break from my show. It's your show. You can do that.
Yeah.
I love that you talk to the audience though ahead of a break and you explain that we're going to be off for a while, but you always set it up and then you're right back again, just like you promised, and you show up again. And as a listener, it's like, yeah, it just seems right. It's like Mary's on a break. It's fine. Right. I know you're coming back.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting and anticipating. I like that.
Yeah. And I always say, like, you treat your listeners like your best friends.
Yeah.
So if you are going to be away, you know, you let them know. You don't just ghost them and never come back. They're going to be like, oh, what happened to you? Well, I've been hanging out for you once a week. Where'd you go? Like friends get worried. So you just got to say, hey, going on vacation. You tell your friends you go on vacation, right? So why not tell your podcast listeners?
Awesome. I want to get a little bit into the title of the show, the visible voice component to the title of your podcast. Why is that in there? Why is that important for you based on your background and all the things you've done in radio leading into podcasting? Visible voice. Why is that in the title of your show?
I really wanted to make sure that people realized that with the podcast, your voice becomes visible, right? Like you are literally heard around the world on your show. But there's always that mental part of it, especially when I worked in radio. I remember a lot of the women working either at the radio station or clients coming in to voice their commercials, because I did a lot of commercial production work in radio. And a lot of the times, those clients, those small business owners, they were almost convinced or roped in to voice their own commercial, even though they're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. Oh, my voice sounds funny or what have you, right? And so their voice is not visible. Yet we're telling them, okay, if you want to have be the face of your brand, you are the face in all your visual branding, where is your voice when it comes to your radio commercials? And so I wanted to make sure that the people who wanted to have that visible voice be out making their podcasts can do it in a way that is still going to be fun and not nerve-wracking or second guess themselves when they finally do share their voice. Because there are people who are like, okay, I bought the microphone, I plugged it in, I recorded my first episode, and then they hear it and they're like, oh, that's not how I thought I would sound. And then they never publish, right? So there's different layers of that.
Again, and then the part too about your natural voice, not a made up persona, not like an actor playing a role.
Yeah.
Like who you are. I've met people in person and they're like, you're just the same that I envision you to be. You're a little bit not as tall as I thought you would be. Yeah, I'm like, well, that's weird. How do you associate height with your sound of your voice? I don't know what that means. But anyways, people will be like, you're like exactly who I imagine you to be. Like they have this in their mind as I listen to you. I already feel like I have a relationship and a friendship with you because I've heard you talk about your family and your business and your life and your history and everything. So I feel like I have this wealth of knowledge about Mary Chan that the moment I'm going to meet you one day in person, I already know you. Right. And it's kind of weird because people are like, I know you. You're like, I don't know who you are. But this natural voice, I think, is something that you don't have to pretend and you don't have to try to remember it. Like, how did I record the last episode?
Yeah, exactly.
Just be you.
Yeah.
Just be you. Right. For you on the radio, going back as you've been radio for like 20 plus years, in your early days of radio, how did they teach you to tap into your natural voice?
A lot of patience. It's not overnight to try this technique for a few days. A week later, you figure it out, right? Like it is something where I find with a podcast is such a great tool because it is essentially the same thing as what I used to do in radio school. So back in radio school, we would be on the radio and every time we turned on the microphone, it would record onto a little cassette tape. So then our instructor would then listen to every single time we turned on the microphone. We would say something and they would critique us. And it is the same in a podcast where you have everything recorded. You can listen to it at any time and listen back. Most people don't listen back to their episodes. And I feel like that is a detriment because you have such a great learning opportunity here for you to figure out, okay, how do I sound? What was happening in that moment when I recorded the episode? And how can I change that, shift that? Because you're not trying to put, as you said, put on a voice. You're not trying to change your voice. It's just when you're behind the microphone, how comfortable are you speaking behind it so that it still sounds like yourself? And so, yes, it was my instructors every single week listening to this cassette tape of every single time I spoke. And it would just be some harsh love, some tips and techniques, but it really was about practice. And it was a 2-year radio program. And coming out of that, I had some confidence. I'm like, yeah, I think I can do this. It still wasn't my first love. I wanted to be behind the scenes and just producing commercials. I didn't want to actually be in front of the mic. But then my very first radio full-time gig was doing the commercial production, which I loved, from 2 to 6 p.m. But I had to be on the air first from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And it was like, I was excited, but after a while I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think this is that great. And there were some shifts where it was just the song, the time, the temperature, just doing the daily things and not really loving it. And I feel like that's where the break needs to come in, right? Like if you do it day in and day out, you need those breaks. But long story short to say, eventually I listened to myself every single day without my instructor there. And I had to critique myself. And I had to listen in for, oh my gosh, when did I sound like I was a friend to someone versus when did I sound like I was cringing, right, at my own voice. And the times where I felt like I was a friend was when I laughed at my own jokes, right? And you're just like, oh, wait a minute. That was me. That was my funny idea. Hey, maybe there's something to this. So it took a very long time. And I worked at that radio station for over a year. So 2 years of radio classes, 1 year of being in the industry, before I realized something is clicking.
And that opens up a door for you then. Once you tap into that natural voice, I think your personality is unlocked too, right? Because we hide our personality while we're trying to find our voice. And we're kind of wrestling with, again, you said the sound of our voice played back from an external speaker or device doesn't sound the same as what it sounds like that in our heads and what we're accustomed to. And then the other part too is I found, like there's Vin Jang, for example, he gets up and talks about how to use your voice and how to project and how to use your instrument. He talks about a lot. And what I love about what he does is just finding your confidence as well. Because some people are quite timid. And most people don't have the benefit of your knowledge in school. We're like starting this on the weekend with a microphone and no idea what we're doing, no formal training like you have, and trying to pull off what we envision as good based on what we listen to other shows. And then we have this gap between our knowledge and what we want the end product to sound like. And that gap is really hard to fill. And so for somebody who's starting a show but wants coaching, I know that you do coaching and you help people, but is there some kind of coachable things you can give us, just kind of a taste of what you would possibly walk through with somebody to help them to overcome that gap of a lack of knowledge?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is how I was saying before, like your listener is your friend. So wherever you are recording your episodes, whether that is in a closet, at your kitchen table, in a living room, wherever you are, and especially if you're doing a solo episode and you don't have that other person to bounce your energy off of, you have to picture in your mind who your ideal listener is. Who is that person so that you can visualize the person? And if you can't mentally visualize who that person is, back in radio school, we used to actually cut out from a magazine, or, when you buy a picture frame, there's always the people in the picture frame. We would stick that in front of our microphone, our visual peripheral vision, and talk to that person so that we have someone there that we can parlay that energy with, because it is a little hard sometimes to get that mental idea of who you're talking to, and that also takes a bit of practice. But if you want, just find, I don't know, a flyer, newspaper flyer with clothes on sale, right? Then you just cut out that model and paste that person there and talk to that person as a first step, because that really does change the whole dynamic when you internally feel like you are actually talking to someone versus the void of eventually this is going to go on the internet. I'm talking to everyone, and that can be very, very daunting.
What are your thoughts, Mary, on this push in podcasting at the moment for, like with Apple's announcement of video podcasting becoming back in the spotlight for them on Apple? I'm hearing a lot of people reaching out to me going, I would start a podcast. I don't want to be on video, so I guess I can't be a podcaster. You have a very audio first approach to your show. Do you have any kind of thoughts, especially for people who are wrestling with the idea that video is mandatory in podcasting? What do you think?
Well, first of all, nothing is mandatory.
Thank you.
Nothing that you do in podcasting is mandatory. You have your own show. You can do whatever you like. I might say having an RSS feed is mandatory, but how you create that isn't mandatory. Like, you can host it on your own website. You can pay for a monthly subscription to a media hosting platform. Like, nothing is really mandatory. And so video is part of that. Just because a big platform is highlighting this feature, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is beneficial for you. They just want to make money. They just want to grow their own platform. So if you don't want to do video, you don't have to do video. And just like radio and television, yes, radio is waning, but it still exists. People still listen to a radio show in podcast form now. You don't have to have a YouTube component or a video component at all. And I would say, too, if you decide to go that video route, that is totally cool. You can incorporate that. Just know that the big shows that do well in video have a whole video setup, right? There's the lighting. They have multiple camera angles, at minimum 2, probably 3 or 4. And they have an editing team. And they know how to create transitions and intros and outros that visually are really appealing so that it's high production value for those videos. Otherwise, it's not, for me, for an independent podcaster, it's not really worth the time. Like, imagine for you, if you're doing a daily show and you have to put together video as well. Would you do it, Dave?
No. There's no way. And I'm a team of one, right? It's just me.
Yeah.
So, no, I couldn't commit to that on an ongoing basis. No, it'd burn me out. Boom.
Boom. Yeah.
Right. The other part, too, is just the idea that if you're struggling or wrestling with the sound of your voice and just adding the layer of video on top of that, now you're seen on camera and also wrestling with your voice, right? This idea of being judged by people. Now, not just by the sound of your voice, which you might be wrestling with, but then how you show up on camera is another level on top of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people on YouTube, they're not always the nicest in the comments, by the way, right? So there's levels.
There's levels for sure. And you're talking about being, judged in comments in YouTube. But I find, especially with women, there's a lot of self-judgment. So we've talked a lot about like the sound of our own voice, and sometimes we're like, oh, I don't know if that sounds like me. But then you add on that video component, and women are so judged so much already on the way they look. Then you add that on top of it. So, okay, do I sound good? Is my microphone set up well? Do I have all the things? And then, okay, did I wash my hair? What am I going to put on my top? Because if it's video, I need something good from top up. Do I need to put on some makeup? I want some good lighting. So are you going to get some ring lights? Are you going to this and that? Like, there's just so much more involved with video. And if you're not mentally prepared for that, it can be pretty shocking to see yourself on video and to have to do all the edits and all that stuff for it.
That's the hosting side, like being the host of the show and dealing with it all, But then there's the guesting side as well. I have multiple shows, Mary. One of the other shows I do is called Living the Next Chapter, and it's an author podcast. I have authors who come on my show who write under pen names.
Yeah, exactly.
They write under pen names because some of them, because of security. The story that, or the thing they wrote has implications for their own personal security and safety. So I can't ask them, hey, Mary, where are you from? Where do you live?
Right.
Like I can't introduce them that way because they're like, no, I can't tell you that. And this, like, I can't be seen on camera because as soon as somebody sees me, they're going to see that this is a pen name.
Yeah.
So I can't have this go out. I think as hosts of shows, this pressure on our guest to be on video is another level. I'm like, this is not fair. From my personal view on it as a host is I always let my guests know I don't release video unless I have your permission to do so. No, I'm happy to do video, but I do the audio first. I'm an audio first podcaster.
Yeah.
And video is in the margins of life. When I have time, I'll do video. I'll do video to promote. I'll do video on Instagram. I'll do a face to camera on my phone. Those are quick, 60 seconds, bang, I'm out the door. Those are pretty easy to do, not a high production value, but they get out.
Yeah.
And the video helps support the podcast, which I get
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
But a full video of a guest who doesn't want to be on video would limit the amount of people who want to come on my show.
And also limit back to the voice part. They're not going to be happy. They'll still do the interview, right? They'll be like, okay, yeah. But the whole time they're going to be sitting there with this subconscious note of, oh, it's going to be on video. Right. Oh, how am I sitting? How am I standing? Do I look right? Oh, I got to do this. Oh, that was something weird while they're trying to tell their story. And they're not going to have that natural voice that we've been talking about, right? Because they're so concerned about the video part of it. And that's one of the things that I find that I love about the audio experience, especially on that if you're having a conversation. It's like back in the olden days when we used to talk on the telephone. You know, we can share so many private things when it is just you and a person talking on the phone, right? I remember growing up and sharing all my deepest, darkest secrets to my friends. And it kind of is the same way when I worked on radio. When you have that non-visual piece, people are not distracted by all the visual things that are happening around you. They are just so honed in on sharing with you their thoughts and feelings because they know also there is no visual aspect. So even sometimes like this, while we are on a video chat, while recording this audio podcast, people do forget sometimes that your audience is audio only. So they might say things like, oh, yeah, the sweater that I'm wearing, right? And then as an audio listener, you're like, okay, yeah, you got a sweater on. But like if I was on an audio only recording, I might talk about, this I've got a sweater on right now because it is a little bit chilly still, and I knit it myself, and it's quite soft, and it's made of wool and Angora, so it's my cozy sweater.
Right.
And it gives you a totally different theater of the mind. You're picturing the sweater. I haven't even told you the color, but like you're already picturing what that might look like. And hence the same with the podcast. You already feel like you're my friend because we've been hanging out together, me based on sharing my stories with you, right? And it reminds me too of somebody that I know. She is a realtor in town, and she has been podcasting for quite a few years. And she didn't want to, but it was like her business coach or somebody was like, oh yeah, I think you need a podcast. I think it'd be great. And it was their idea. And so they were like, okay, well, what's the concept going to be? And so she started talking about the different neighborhoods in town. And sometimes it would be like an interview with somebody else who lives in that neighborhood. And during those moments, you're so yourself in that recording, you know, the way you laugh, the way you talk. And then, of course, it goes out all over the world. And she started getting inquiries from people who wanted to move here from across the country. And when they finally came into town to look at houses, they were like, oh, yeah, so-and-so. Oh, my gosh, it's so great to finally meet you. They hug and they're like laughing at, just all the mannerisms that she had. And at first she was really taken aback. Like, I don't know you guys. Like, what? Like, I just met you. Like, what is going on? And then she realized, oh my gosh, these are all the things that I say and do on my podcast. So it was like an instant connection, which as the host, you forget that you've done over multiple episodes. But for the listener, it's instantaneous if they ever get to meet you in person.
That theater of the mind really lends itself well to visible voice.
Yeah.
Right. It's right there as well in the title. Because when I listen to you on your show, I do feel like I'm there with you, which is a great feeling to have. But also when you're explaining something, right, and you're using something to explain a point, and you're telling a story. My mind is envisioning the story from my perspective, listening to you explain it, but I'm putting myself into the story, which is it's really fun as a listener to be able to do that. And you don't have the distractions of the screen. Yeah. Right? You don't have the visual cues to see it the way you want me to see it. I get to see it the way I want to see it as a listener. Right. In my own mind.
Yes.
Right? And that's a totally different experience than a visually led conversation.
Yeah. So how did you deal with being behind the mic for the first time, or the first time you recorded a podcast? What was that like for you?
So, Mary, I'm an introvert. If I go to a large event, I'm 10 seconds in, I'm ready to go home. Like, I'm not, my wife is the opposite of me. A large event just lights her up, and good luck getting her out of the place. She won't leave. She's the last one to go. I'm the first one to go. So we're a great combo. But when I come to the mic, I have to turn up I call it my Dave dial a little bit, because my natural resting state is quite monotone, kind of like, meh. People who know me casually would think I'm pretty quiet, pretty much. But the people who know me through podcasting, it's a different experience for them. And the people who know me really well know that I'm not like that. For me, I know I have to turn it up a little bit. I'm a musician. I've been doing music for 45 years. I've been on stage in front of thousands of people playing music live, and I'm an introvert. Like, talk about the worst place for an introvert to be on stage in front of a bunch of random strangers performing. Like, if I mess up, everybody's going to know because I'm right there. Everybody can hear what I just did. If I step on the chord of my guitar and it pops out of my guitar, you don't hear me play anymore. That's happened. Yeah, so putting me in a place like that, I know I have to turn up the dial just a little bit to be more engaging and more entertaining, I guess. You know what I mean? Like more fun for people to be around, instead of my natural resting state, which is like, I could go home.
Then how does that parlay into do you feel that you still have your natural voice when you're behind the mic?
Yeah, it's that. I think that is actually really the natural me. I think the introverted version of me is not the natural me.
Oh.
I think that's actually kind of that's where I go to, I guess, maybe to feel safe in a public setting.
Yeah.
But I'm fine. I'm a confident person. I'm not shy. I find that big events just kind of, I don't have the same energy from a big event that my wife does.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's, I just see it differently. It feels different to me. It's draining for me and it's energizing for her. So it's very interesting.
But I also feel like with podcasting, because a lot of it is a one-to-one conversation most of the time, that introverts really do well in that scenario, because you also, if it's audio only, you don't have the visual distraction. You're not talking to a stage full of people or a group or a crowd of people. It's very one-on-one. So it is very much you.
Mary, I want you to explain to someone who hasn't heard your podcast yet, because after today, they're going to go listen to every episode. I can guarantee it, because the moment they press play for the first time, they're hooked. I was hooked right away. I want you to kind of unpack for us how you do the show, because you have your intro, you have kind of how you do your setup. You're talking, and then to my delight as a listener, all of a sudden there was like this little change that happens in the podcast, and music starts coming up, and then you talk over the music and it brings us to a new spot. And now we feel like we're in a totally different location in the podcast, and we continue from there. And the first time that I listened to your show, Mary, and you did that for me as a listener, I was like, hang on, wait a minute. what just happened? I actually rewound it, like went back, skipped back, and I'm like, I want to hear that again. Because I don't hear that often in podcasting. It's usually music at the beginning, intro, music at the end, outro, we're done. And the content's in the middle. Could you kind of unpack kind of how you structure your episodes, like your solo episodes?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
For the listener. So, and then we're going to send them to you because they got to come listen. But tell me what's going on in your mind and why you do what you do. And I just need to know more.
You need to know more. Okay. So the first thing is I edit and produce my own show, right? So, but I well done. Thank you. But I also edit and produce a lot of shows for my clients, which is like what you said, that most of the time it's just the intro, the outro, and then the interview in the middle. And so on a very selfish point, I was missing the fun version of audio editing that I used to do in radio, which was making the commercials. It was music, sound effects, and voiceover, right? Like it was all blend to create what I used to always call a 30-second movie. Commercials for me were a 30-second movie that I could create, if it allowed, right? If there was play and allowance for that. So then I thought, how can I have play and allowance for that within my own work that I wasn't always getting with my client work? There would be a couple shows that I could incorporate some of that, but I was like, okay, if I created my own podcast, I still want to have that selfish, fun part for me, but also it's going to be more entertaining and engaging for the listener. So then I sat down and was like, okay, when do I want to put in those little musical interludes? And as I structure each episode, it's about thinking again about your ideal listener. When they are going through this audio journey with you, there are going to be little vignettes or segments that you want to highlight or points that you want to make. So when I put together the episode, there's a lot of little mini vignettes in between. And those vignettes are my takeaway thoughts. Okay, after this piece of music ends, I want to make sure that they understand this thought of mine is closing before I move on to the next one, which is usually then no music, which when it ends, my thought ends with a new piece of music starting. So that's the cycle. It's every time like a theme within the episode starts and stops. It's when the music either starts or stops with it. So I use music as a transitional piece.
Now, I don't know if I got the term correct because, again, I don't have the wealth of knowledge that you have. Is it called hitting the mark where the music ends right where you want it to end with what you're saying? Is that right?
Yeah, it is hitting the mark. When we were in radio, like one of the things, especially when you're on the air, is if you can stop talking and hit the mark as the intro of the music starts. And so when you hit the mark, you stop talking and the vocals start in the music.
Boom.
Right? Boom. That's hitting the mark. But it's a little easier when you're producing a podcast because I can shift that, right? Everything's pre-recorded. But doing it live is, it's such a great feeling when you hit the mark doing it live.
Is there for the people behind the scenes for listening to radio and stuff and always wonder, do you have an idea of how long the music is before the song, or do you practice, or how do you know when to do that?
Back in the day when it was just like 8 tracks or CD players, we used to we'd actually have to have a stack of CDs on a music radio station, and then you put them into the player. You kind of get a feel for what that intro is. So you just have that beat and you know what that song's going to be like, because on a music radio station, like that song plays, if it's a popular song, it plays 10 times a day. So you get it at least once or twice in your shift. But nowadays, digital, when whoever puts the music into the system, you can actually, it's called a post. You can hit the intro post. So not the other term is to hit the post instead of hit the mark. So you actually put it into the database that the intro, like if I put it in, I would actually listen to it, time it, and then mark it. So that when you hit play at the radio station, you actually see a little countdown, which helps you. It's not as cool like back in the day when you actually like hit that post on a CD without that timing helping you.
So as a listener of your show, Mary, my takeaway from a listener perspective is I can tell that you care about your show. You care about the quality of your show. You care about the finished product of your show. I've talked to some podcasters who are like completely against editing altogether. They just record and post. And I guess for some people that works fine, but I think editing just gives another level of care for your audience, care for the content, maybe removing some things that don't add value. At the end of the day, you're like, I asked that question to my guest and the answer wasn't exactly what I was hoping for. Maybe it was a bad question. It was kind of a stumble. If I just leave it in, being authentic, I'll just leave in all my mistakes. I don't know if the audience benefits from all of the worst things that we leave into our show. And when I listen to your show, again, it's very natural as a listener. It doesn't feel like it's overproduced. Some shows feel overproduced. It feels very natural. There's a beautiful flow to it. And it's just like the best of the best in an episode. I find that keeps me listening longer to shows that where the host and the editing team really put some time and effort into it and make the best possible episode for the audience as possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And again, that comes a lot with my radio background, because when I was a commercial producer, we used to have stacks and stacks of paper, and each paper was a script and a commercial, right? They're 30-second commercials or less or more, give or take, but we would have dozens and dozens to do each day. And so the days that we don't have those stacks of commercials to do, we put in more time and effort because we do have the time for it. So it really is dependent on how much time you are giving to the podcast production. If you have more time, then give it a bit more love and care or testing things out. If you don't have as much time, then a lot of people are going to just record it and hit publish. But I feel like you're right in that because there is more time and care into the episode, it's more because I want to make sure it's a pleasing and nice listening experience for the listener. And that can come from either being prepared before, if you're doing an interview style show, being prepared beforehand and doing your research, what we used to call show prep back in the day of radio. You would figure out what you want to draw out of your guest, so that not that you have all your questions written out ahead of time and that you're just going to ask next question, next question, next question. No, because you're engaging with your guest, but you've already done all that research ahead of time. You kind of know where you want to take that journey for your listener while listening to your guest, so that because you've done all this show prep, you have less editing to do, because you don't have to actually go back and go, oh, was that an okay answer from that person? Or was that question okay? You know that the majority of the conversation that you've recorded will be great, that you can publish. And so the editing that you are doing is just fine-tuning the beginning and the end, and maybe a couple little something in the middle where you're like, oh, wait, I have this note, and you're flipping papers and you're, you can cut out that stuff, because who on the listener side wants to listen to paper wrestling? It's not great for the listener. So when you do edit and you have the time and care for it, listen while you're editing from a listener point of view. Don't listen for, just most people edit, I think, based on how they're presenting themselves. Right? They're listening to their voice very intently. They're listening to how they said something, versus if you just switch that around and say, okay, how is a listener listening to this? You'll be also less judgmental about yourself too on your show.
The Podcaster's Guide to a Visible Voice, everybody. Tap into your natural voice through the show. Mary's an amazing podcaster. I am a super fan. Again, it's just, I love reaching out and saying, hey, would you come on the show? And when Mary says, oh, yeah, I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. Because now I have a face to the voice, which is a bonus for me as we record. But I just want to say again, Mary, as a listener, as a part of your community, I just want to say thank you for all that you do with your show. It's just such an engaging show. You bring so much value to me as a listener. I always encourage my podcasters who do interviews to always consider your guest a listener, not a guest.
That's
there
right.
are listeners in front of you that you're interviewing for your show because they've probably done their homework and listened to some part of the episode. So they've now moved from being a stranger as a guest to being a community member as a listener just by being on your show. So treat them like a listener, not like a guest. That's the one thing I try to encourage people who do interviews to think of it that way. I don't see you as my guest, Mary. I see you as a podcaster that I admire, and I'm in your community, and I love what you do. So I'm just here to represent them because I know they wish they could be sitting here with you right now. And on behalf of everybody that listens to your show, I just want to say thank you so much for what you do, your love and care for your content and your community. It shows. It's a visible thing. It's a visible voice that comes through our ears, to our ears. I love it, Mary. So thank you for all that you do. Wrap up for us, Mary. Give us like a goodbye, a closing thought for that podcaster that's listening, who may be early in their days. They're still trying to find their natural voice, their visible voice. I'm going to go sit with the audience because I love listening to you. And I want you to kind of wrap us up and give us that closing thought about tapping into that natural voice from your perspective.
Yeah, that goes back to like finding that photo and taping it next to your microphone, because when you figure out who that person is that you want to talk to, everything else is going to be so easy. Whether you're brand new and you haven't figured out the title yet or the artwork, or you're seasoned and you've done quite a few episodes, quite a few years doing this, but maybe you're like, oh, who should my next guest be? What should I talk about on the next episode? If you know who that ideal listener is, all those questions can easily be answered because they're right there with you, going on this podcasting journey with you. So I always say, how do you want your listener to feel? Because once you get that feeling, you can produce an episode and create an amazing show. And that kind of answers also your previous question about the music piece. How do I want my listener to feel was my guiding on that music stuff and how I edit it each and every episode. It's about how do I want that listener to feel when they're listening to me?
As a podcaster listening to Mary's show, you're going to learn from example too, which I love, because it's not just a show about the content and what Mary's saying, but how she's delivering the content. Take notes as a listener. When you listen to Mary's show, you're going to have a page full of notes because there's a lot of great elements to her show, and she's crafting in front of you a different approach to podcasting I don't see or hear very often, Mary. So you're unique, you're creative. It shows on the show, and I'm just thrilled to have you here. Where do we go, Mary, for everyone to come and find you, follow you? You've got a lot of great services as well people can tap into. Where do you want to send the audience?
Yeah, organizedsound.ca is my business, Organized Sound Productions. But of course, the podcast is a great way because I have everything that I know that I record and I put onto there. So just look up Visible Voice on your favorite listening app and it's the purple logo.
It's excellent. Everyone, all information for Mary in the show notes. As always, would love for you to go and support her. I know I'm listening on Spotify. Jump into Spotify if you're there. Leave comments in the episodes. I love seeing those. It's very engaging. When you listen to Mary's show, don't just listen to the beginning. Listen to the entire podcast right to the end. That's a signal to the app. When people come and stay, the app takes notice and goes, everybody that comes to Mary's show sticks to the end. This must be a good show, which would then tell the app, maybe we should promote this show more. I don't know. That makes sense.
Darn
so
algorithm.
Everybody, right? Get in there and listen and support and share this with somebody else who's looking for a great podcast about podcasting. You will fall in love with Mary as I have, and you'll just get so much value. Mary, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Dave, thank you so much. I just love nerding out with a fellow podcast nerd. So thanks for having me.
You got to come back in the future, Mary. I'd love to have you back again.
Yeah, I will.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast all the way through to the end. I love having these great guest co-hosts on the show to share their podcasts with you. You have some homework to do. And what I'm asking of you is to go check out our featured guest co-host today. Go over and listen to their podcasts. The links are always in the show notes. And I'd love for you to go and give them your love and support. And I think if we can all do that for each other, podcasting will be a lot more fun for all of us. So it's time to do what you've asked others to do for you. It's time to do for this guest co-host. Links in the show notes. Go over and check out their show and leave them a review, do the follow, go listen to their episodes in full, the entirety of an episode, which again shows to the apps that it's a good podcast because you're going there and you're staying to the end. It's probably one of the best ways you can help a podcaster grow their audience and be shown to more people is by simply going and listening wherever you listen to the very end, like you're doing right now here. This is the perfect way to signal to wherever you're listening on, this is a podcast worth promoting. And all of the apps want you to stay on as long as possible. So go over and listen to our guest co-host episode and leave them some feedback. If they have a buy me a coffee, send them a coffee. If they have a speak pipe, send them a voice message. If they have an email, send them an email. If they're on Instagram, send them a direct message. Do something to support our guest co-hosts. They've given up their time to be here with you, to be here with me, and we can give that back to them with time and attention, our love, our support. Thank you for doing all that for me as well. Here on the How to Podcast series, we'll talk to you soon for our next episode. Hey, you're still here. Awesome. I love having guests on the show. It's so much fun to share the mic with a podcaster that I just admire and think so much of. A question that I had come in was somebody was setting up their podcast. We were working on it together and figuring out what categories to put their podcast in. And they had a business podcast. So we went and looked at the category options for business podcasts. And there's like the master category of business. You can imagine how competitive that category is on its own. Then we went down like a little bit deeper into the business category and found a subcategory under business and put the podcast there. By using the subcategories instead of the big master all-encompassing category, you actually end up in two categories. Simply by using the subcategory, the next level down, like a little deeper, because the subcategory lives in the main category. So you get a 2-for-1 deal. So don't just pick the biggest topic category for your subject, like health, and that's your first category, because you're going to be up against every possible podcast under the term health. Instead, go health and then go to one category below, like mental health, and put yourself in the mental health podcast, if that makes sense for your show. By doing that, you'll be in the mental health podcast listings for your podcast, but also under the same master category of health. So you get a 2-for-1 deal. So instead of just picking the big ones because it seems easy and you're not really sure, then you and I need to have a conversation. And realize too that you can change these category headings anytime you want. So if you find that your podcast has changed in content or expanded or tweaked your content a little bit, and your categories don't make sense the way you set them up originally, you should go take a look and see and adjust. It won't hurt you at all. The other thing, if you've been podcasting for a while, I'm pretty sure you don't even remember all of your category headings and where your podcast is put. So you might want to go take a look under the hood and make sure that your categories match your content today, because you probably set this up way long ago and you're not even sure. If you have any questions, howtopodcast.ca. Go to the subcategories. You're going to get a better 2-for-1 deal than the main category. Just a tip. Talk soon. Take care.